Hey, this is Jason Carne. I'm on Dunbnakedandbroke podcast, talking with Manuel Wisdom.
Dumb Naked and Broke. Welcome back. I'm your host, Emmanuel Wisdom. Today I have a special guest in the studio. Drove all the way down to Philly, a 90-minute drive. He's a lettering artist and a graphic designer, Jason Carne.
Thanks for having me on, man.
How you doing, Jason? Welcome to the show.
Doing good, doing good. Appreciate
Great.
you having me over.
Great, I'm glad. Now I could get my TV voice off. Dude, we was chatting, actually, Rose was late, so we was chatting a lot longer. We was chatting about like NFTs and like artists paying attention to social media and kind of I feel like some of that kind of gets into like ownership and like value of like artist rights and all of that. But before we jump into all of that, we're gonna ease into things. How was your drive out to Philly?
It was good today.
Today?
It was better than about a week and a half ago.
Mm.
I was supposed to fly out to a music fest. Got on the plane, flight got grounded, canceled. No other flights out. So
I was back with the weather.
mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Couldn't go to the show. Couldn't take another flight out anywhere else. So just had to go home. So last trip to Philly wasn't too good. This one's a little bit better.
You just came out here and then went back home.
Yep. Yep. Once in a while, I'll go to like a couple record stores around town. Go to like Repo Records and a couple other spots.
So, do you really own 1,000 records?
Like 3,000 plus, yeah. It's a lot.
Wow. How'd that start?
When I was younger, I would just collect CDs. Like a lot of places would just have them for like $1 or $2 because it just was like a cheaper format, I guess, at the time. Like all used CDs, I could get at like any local shop. And after a while, I kind of wanted to see like the full artwork, like the gatefolds with like all the inserts and the posters and like we were talking about before we came on here, it's like a more intentional experience. Like you sit down, you put the needle on, like you're paying attention to what you're doing.
Right.
Where it's like not just background noise anymore. And I don't know, it's kind of like opened me up to a lot of different styles of music and stuff too. When I was younger, it was all like punk and hardcore and metal and it's just like real like aggressive stuff. And like now I've got like pretty much any genre you can imagine. Like I got tons of like soul, jazz. I've got a lot of like alternative rock stuff. Like I have more hip hop than anything in my collection. Probably I got like 700 hip hop records.
Wow. All right, let's talk about some of your favorites from those genres. Like I don't know, like personal favorites, or it could be ones that are your go-to in terms of work.
Well, I'd say like if we're going like off hip hop because that's like my biggest part of my collection. Like my biggest, most collected artist is MF Doom. I've got probably 20
Rest in
different
peace to
albums.
the legend.
Yep. Yeah, that was crazy too. Like
Yeah.
he died on Halloween last year. It's almost a year ago already, and we didn't even find out till New Year's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kept it quiet for months.
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like MF Doom death is kind of similar to the likes of like he's such a legend. It's similar to like David Bowie, passing. I think like right before his birthday or
Yeah.
something like it's very like how you go out, kind of going out in style almost.
It almost fit into like his
Like,
character,
exactly,
like his mystery and everything.
exactly. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, but he had so many different projects, like the Victor Vaughn stuff, the Mad Villain stuff, like the King Ghidorah. Like the dude was just super creative, one of the best MCs ever. And then like I've been trying to get like all the Wu-Tang solo albums, but there's like 40 of them, so it's like real spread out all over. But like a lot of the other like biggest part of my collection is probably like hardcore and punk stuff. So I have a lot of stuff from like older bands like the Cramps, the Dead Kennedys, and Bad Religion, and so those are like my two go-tos for the most part.
Wow. So with the records, do you like say if you're approaching a project, do you like set up like like you were talking like the putting yourself kind of not in the mood, but like just like the whole feel of intentionally playing the music from start to finish, or an album, or
Yeah,
just
for
like the
sure.
record? Do
Like
you
certain
like?
projects, you get in the right mindset with the right music and things like that.
Hmm.
Like if I'm working
Yeah,
for
like
the
walk me
artist,
through like that ideal project that would include that setup.
well, I had this project over the summer, which is like most perfect project I can imagine for myself. There was, you know who Riot Games is? They made like League of Legends, like big computer game kind of
I
thing.
know the games. I don't know the person.
Yeah, like I never actually like played the game, so I didn't realize like how big it was. But they got 100 million players in that game, which is just
Wow.
crazy. It's like a whole social media network itself
Yeah.
in that game. But they have bands in the game, so they had this metal band that they like made 3D characters out of and everything, and they had me
Wow.
do the logo, like concepts for album art, all sorts of advertisement pieces and things like that. So obviously, like it was just nice to be able to listen to like a bunch of like metal to get in the mood for what I was doing. You know, like it's like a
Yeah.
rare opportunity. Like a lot of what I do is like old timey Victorian lettering,
Mm,
so I don't really like get in that headspace a lot with like the
yeah.
heavy music. But with this one, it was perfect.
Mm. Yeah, I can only imagine. Like, do you like have that edition of the game, or you said it was this summer, so probably it's too early.
Well, they just dropped the album. It's actually like a full album. Like they have people from like other big metal bands like all contributed. Like the vocalist from this band or guitarist from this band all
Mm.
came to like record it. Remember that show Metalocalypse on Adult Swim that they had?
Mm.
Yeah,
I'm when it comes to TV, I watch limited amount of TV, but I get some shows references again, but
yeah. It's just
yeah.
like cartoon metal show, like
Mm.
basically. And they had like all like real musicians from like big heavy metal bands come and play the parts like in the studio, and that's what this band did too. They're called Pentakill, and so we got to hear their album like in advance beforehand and everything. So with that project in particular, like I was listening to a lot of their stuff over and over just to make sure it felt like exactly right for that project.
Wow. Wow. And also like with most of the design process, I feel like a lot of like the clients don't necessarily know about the process, but like I feel like a lot of that research slash client discovery phase, um, it's not only is it needed, but like it's so like integral to the overall finished product that like for me I see about like it makes up about 30 to I would say 30 to 50% of the work for me, because once I sit down and start to work, that's just kind of like printing out what's already up here
Mhm.
in the head. But is that how you approach the
Yeah,
work as well?
yeah, for sure. And like with this project, I'm thinking I might have saved them like a big lawsuit even with the research and discovery part.
Interesting.
Like a
How
lot of the
so?
people behind the project, they weren't people who were like into heavy music. Like they didn't know much about like metal or punk or anything like that. But there is this big metal band called Pentagram, and they were called Pentakill.
Mm,
And the logo that they wanted to go with was like almost exactly the same.
wow.
Like in this band, like to metal people, it's like same level as like Black Sabbath or Iron
Mm,
Maiden. Like everybody in the genre knows it.
wow.
So if you're gonna like rip them off, everybody's gonna call you out about it, and they're probably gonna sue you too for it.
Yeah. And also I feel like as like designers, the more you expose yourself to what's outside the industry, the more you could educate your clients, because like if you're looking at work, they could be like different genres of work in terms of design. So like your clients are coming from different areas, but like your exposure helped kind of resolved what would have been a problem. But also that's also something that could also come back to hunt you as well as a designer, in terms of being ignorant to. But that's you would know that. I wouldn't know that because
Yeah,
again, it's
but there have been scenarios like that too, to where like I would design something and think it's like an original, unique
mm,
idea and put it out there, and then somebody's like, "Yeah, that looks exactly like this" or
yeah,
something. And that happened like more on early in my career before I like knew how to look up stuff and knew exactly like how to research my projects and things like that.
yeah,
Or even like the competitors for your clients.
yeah,
Like if you got somebody who only has like two or three competitors in the area and you do like the same type of design as like their main competitor, like that's not really helping them. That's just making
no,
them look like they're
yeah,
their competition.
yeah. Clients always try to like get like trying like either like take parts from their client like competition logos or branding, instead of focusing on their own like narrative to help that visual. and I always try to like steer away clients if I do work with them in the branding and identity aspect, steer them away from that kind of quote unquote plagiarism. Because that's kind of what it is, kind of glorified
Hmm.
plagiarism. Um,
Yeah, I try to steer them away from that. Like we have this one big distillery client,
yeah, as you should.
and they have everything like gin, vodka, bourbon, whiskey, all that. And every time they hit us up, they're like, "Can you do something more like Tito's vodka?" And I'm like, "Yo, stop trying to like. They're top dogs in the game now. Like you don't need to be imitating them. Do your own thing and like stay in your own lane." But I think they see the success behind it, and they figure if they copy
Yeah,
that, they're gonna get a little bit of that too.
yeah. I mean that works for some people, but like you said, sometimes lawsuits and other things follow. But even with like clothing out here, people rip off brands and things, and there's always a market below the market,
Yeah.
you know. um, but you were speaking earlier about your like I guess love for like vintage um, materials like lettering and stuff like that. Do you have any like favorite like go to like vintage design or lettering books?
Yeah, I got a lot of them. That's actually like a side business I ran for a few years. It was called Lettering Library,
Mm.
and I have like 150 books that are like pre 1930. So they're all in the
Wow.
Creative Commons. It's all like public domain stuff. So I
Oh,
made PDFs of like 100 different books that I
wow.
used to sell online for like $2 to $4 a pop on these PDFs. And like there's just so much great material in them. There's like stuff that's just straight up alphabets. There's some that are just every possible monogram combination, like even how to like hold your pen or your brush for
Mm.
like sign painting stuff.
Yeah.
So like a few of my favorites are these old German books. They're called the Schriften Atlas, and they put out a different one like every 10 years. So there's like a Victorian one, there's like an Art Nouveau one, there's an Art Deco one, and there's like 300 pages in each of these, just full of
Wow.
alphabets and like real elaborate initial letters and monograms and things like that.
Would you say it was called
The Schriften Atlas.
Schriften Atlas?
Yeah, it's
Mm.
basically like I think Schriften in German is like writing or something.
Mm.
So it's like
Gotcha.
every letter style of that period that was like popular at the time.
That's pretty cool because like I think like people forget that like the whole like image rights or whatever. I think they were like 50 years or so.
Uh,
Um,
it's actually like 75 now. Like they upped it,
mm.
so you got
Why?
to go. I don't know. Like everybody who wrote that's like long dead. Like all the publishing rights are like
Well,
long gone
we
too.
already know who the quote unquote owners are. We know them. That's why. We know them. I feel like a lot of people. Speaking of ownership, have been we're not in this industry, but put it out there. A lot of people have been really vocal about like the ownership and even like naming rights and image likeness and all of that in rap music. Um, because I feel like the art form of rap was there, but like the foundation was never set up. So the people who set up the foundation were not, the artists. So
Yeah,
now that circle is coming back, and it's like, wait, we didn't sign up for this. But a lot of people have been vocal about that, which I feel like has been kind of eye opening in a way, because musicians are so glorified that
mm,
like even if you are trying to be a musician, it's like to get there, it's like kind of like the image or whatever the goal is, that person, it seems so unattainable. So I feel like talking about these real things, even though if you're a musician or a designer or whatever, just like the creative process of saying, these are the actual, legal struggles of or how an artist is supposed to be, or how an artist is being exploited, or even just like the ramification of the legality of, the contracts you're signing and things like that. I feel like the more people are vocal about it, like we're talking about music, using music to inspire the work, the more you be more conscious about the work that you're doing, because you're hearing things like that in music.
yeah. And the people that are like the rightful owners, a lot of the times they're not really getting their due. Like one of the big things in music was like De La Soul versus Tommy Boy over the last few years. Like
Mm,
their whole catalog is owned by Tommy Boy, and they took like 90% and gave De La like 10. and
Mm.
like they've been fighting him for like 20 years to try to get all their shit back, and they're finally like starting to make it happen. But you could see how they're like making a buck off of them. They were like selling the publishing rights and everything to all these other companies to like repress records and sell
Right.
merch, and they're not seeing any of it.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
I'm seeing it now, like in my feed all the time. I'm seeing stuff for Aaliyah, and apparently like her whole family like does not
Mm.
support like all this stuff that's being like put back out there because they're not seeing any of it.
Wow. How does that, like, in terms of what's happening in that industry? How does that translate to the design industry? Like,
Well, like if you go back and you look at like some of these like real famous vintage designs that like people are parodying all the time, like Disney and Star Wars and stuff like that, like and you bring it into the modern day, like you can parody stuff and you can like put your own spin on it and everything, but if you're basing your whole foundation of your art or your career off of
mm,
something that's already been made by somebody else, it just feels like not quite right. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like it's not your full like original idea, I guess.
yeah. How do you feel about like artists who redesign like the Mickey or maybe Minnie or both of them, just in different forms?
I think if you do it in a unique enough way, it's cool. But like a lot of the time, it just feels derivative and like you're
Mm,
just trying to like piggyback off something that's super huge and successful instead of making your own like new characters and things like that.
mm. Do you
Like
have
there's one thing that's like if you're doing like a homage piece or something like to show your respect for something, that's
right,
cool.
right, right?
But like if you're just doing it because you think it's going to be like a quick buck, I don't know. I feel a little different that way.
Yeah,
Like you see it a lot like after the artists die, like I'm talking about
yeah,
like MF Doom, like
yeah,
how many like
definitely.
shirts and things do you see come out like right after he died
Yeah,
that people were just trying to
right.
profit on?
Even speaking of that, actually, Eric and I, uh, um, when the public, I guess, heard about the passing, um, I hit him up or he had hit me up and we was talking about doing a collab. But I was telling him the time sensitive is too, like, sensitive to when he passed, that I was like, I don't feel comfortable putting out the design, even though if I do end up selling it or putting it up for sale on merch or whatever, I don't feel comfortable with the
Yeah.
time sensitivity around when the news happened and
Yeah, like
how
it's cool as a
everyone's
tribute
reacting.
for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even like he has worked on his part. The illustration is already done, completed. He sent it to me, and I have done some research on some like we were talking about client discovery and all of that on like quotes and things that I want to pair with the illustration, but I haven't put it out yet. Mainly because of I wanted to feel like I feel like if I put it out on say the anniversary of his death, that's okay in the lane of paying homage.
Hmm.
But like I want to feel organic, not like oh I just put this out because everyone's reacting and everyone reaction needs I guess validation or whatever. But I feel like a lot of artists and designer kind of exploit that. I watched that happen with Kobe Bryant, Nipsey Hussle,
Yep. Yeah.
and a lot of artists. And I'm gonna just say it because why not? This is my show. A lot of white artists was painting the likes of Nipsey Hussle and like Kobe. It makes sense. Kobe's a universal dude. I'm not hating on anyone. Just like in terms of time sensitivity, time sensitivity again. And when you go back to see how Nipsey passed and what happened and how it was broadcast, to see people putting out art, it's like because I feel like the black community had a different reaction. The American community or white America had a different reaction, but as a people, we all had the same reaction that that was a human being,
Yeah.
and regardless of what the situation was, that's a no no. Um, so just like watching that and then going on Instagram and people actually felt hurt, so they was posting and doing some things, and I remember the one thing I posted a picture of him on my story, and I don't remember what quote was, but I said something personal that related to me, but that was about it. But and then for the next few months, it was all Nipsey stuff and whatnots. But similar to what we was talking about, it's kind of that fine line between what these kind of owners do with these artists when they're alive and um, under contract, quote unquote. Not that Nip had a similar story, but just in terms of the whatever label or you assigned to controlling and when something happened, using that incident as an instigator to exploit more of the likeness and so even seeing, but going back to the Nip story, seeing designers do that, it's kind of heartbroken. And a lot of stuff you could tell if it's not organic, and you could tell, people who are just doing it because they're doing it. But
yeah, you see a lot of that. It's like people who were like just overnight fans that weren't ever about it before that, and they just wanted like okay, this is like a moment to kind of like jump into the conversation or something. Like they want to be like part of something, I guess that they never were. I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess part of this is why the show is around to kind of educate whoever's listening to it. Rose is always telling me to tell you guys to like, subscribe. Yeah, like and subscribe. Also follow, but
share, comment, all
yeah,
that stuff.
All that stuff. Hit me up directly. Dumb, Naked, and Broke. Welcome back. I got Jason Carne in the studio. What's your favorite color, Jason?
Orange.
Why orange?
No way.
That's your favorite color?
That's you too?
Damn. I should have known that because you're my son. Damn. I feel like an awful parent. Nah, whoever is watching this, that's not really my son behind the camera.
You had him real young.
Yeah, when I was 2. It don't matter. It don't matter.
I'm older than you. So
It don't matter.
You have me before you had this.
We just call it the Brothers in Paris. Jay-Z Kanye song with the Will Ferrell John. It's like it don't make sense, but I guess the people going. Oh man. But anyway, back to orange. Like why is that your go-to or your favorite?
I don't know. I don't really have a good reason for why, I guess. I was just always drawn to it. But
as like a human growing up, you're just like, this is mine.
Yeah, I think I just like this like bright, intense, vivid, like just like one of those like real in your face colors.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's also in your branding, so I guess you have a legit reason as to why.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
In terms of like the design, because like with colors and design, they mean stuff. So like, why are you using it in?
Yeah, I think it's just because
like in terms of branding, like speak to it in like branding language.
Yeah, it's just something that I feel like black and orange is just like always a combo that's just like a surefire hit every time almost.
Yeah,
it's like it does. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's like one of those combos that like no matter what it's on, it looks pretty good. Like I've always really loved like the like purple and gold too, like the Lakers kind of colorway. Yeah. Like that's just a real nice combo too.
That was. I feel like I remember like when I was younger, high school days. Like, damn, I still don't like the Lakers, but I'm a LeBron supporter. But like just like I remember like thinking about it and be like, damn, the uniform's so fly. But I gotta hate them. But yeah, the purple and gold, it just speaks royalty, honestly.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's what they do. So
growing up in Jersey was tough being a Nets fan.
Can imagine.
A lot of bad seasons.
Jersey don't got no sports no more, right?
No.
That's crazy how like technically the sports is still in Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, like
there's
the Jets
different
and Giants
names.
play in Jersey.
Exactly.
New York Jets and New York Giants.
Yeah. That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, same with like Philly Union soccer. I think they're playing like Chester or somewhere. That's not in Philly. Yeah, it's kind of odd to have a home game.
I mean, it's like right on the edge of
Philly. Philly, trust me, we know Philly. We from Philly. That's not Philly. But what emoji represents you today and why?
What emoji?
Yeah, I know you wasn't thinking about that, so that's why I had to. You don't even seem like an emoji dude. You an emoji dude?
Not really.
It's a great question then.
Oh man, I don't know.
He's like
I'm-
thumbs up.
Yeah, let's just hit it with the flame. I like the flame emoji. Yeah,
That's fire.
Yeah.
Literally.
orange.
Yeah, good.
Drawn to that again.
Yeah, stick to what you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think my go-to is I don't even know what this is. It's just like you telling people to stop, or you telling me it's perfect. I don't know, but I just
Oh, is
throw it
the
out there.
hands up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I throw it out there at people,
Yeah.
and I do the calling, or I do the 100 and the fire, and then the stars, a bunch of stars. Those are like my go-to emojis. But that's interesting. I think only probably the stars I would say is representative of me, because this is what I'm thinking about 24/7. But getting back to the meat of what we were talking about. But before we get back to it, I kind of have one question. Do you miss kindergarten?
Kindergarten? No, not really.
Why not?
Well, when I was little, I was kind of violent.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Now I feel like I'm in therapy or something.
So
But,
that makes sense. The lunchbox imprints on those kids' faces.
But I was just a wild kid. I'm not really sure why, but like I would bounce around from school to school. I got kicked out of like 6 schools before like grammar school.
Like first grade?
Yeah, like fighting kids in kindergarten, like hitting teachers and stuff. Like for some reason I was just like a wild kid when I was starting out.
That's
So like after grammar school I kind of like chilled out and like,
What do you think did it for you?
um
You think it was society or like art?
I'm not really sure. Like I never really sat and like thought about why, I guess. But like my mom was a single mother growing up. So like my father
Shout out
wasn't
to the
really
single
around.
moms out there
Yep. Yeah.
getting it done.
Yeah. Like my stepfather came along around like 8 years old. So like from then on, he took good care of me and everything. But for those years growing
Right.
up, formative years, I guess it might have just been some sort of like acting out, like weird family dynamic kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of relatable on different levels with people life, but like with art, I remember I kind of have a similar, story. Like just for me, it's just been like I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But now as an adult, it's more like with the consciousness attached to it, where it's like okay, like your space is only this big. But I remember just being all crazy, and then art came along and kind of stabilized things a little bit. And I'm wondering with art, what time did you really? Where was it something that was always there when you was a kid, or did it come along, like you were saying, like post grammar or midway in grammar school?
Yeah, actually, that's kind of a good point, because that's like the one thing that really kind of like chilled me out and soothed me when I was a kid was like I would just sit there and draw for hours and space out and like just be in my own head about it. And I remember coming home after school, like I really would watch Bob Ross like every day after school. And that was my show. Like as a kid, like I would just watch that dude paint all day long.
I put my mom onto Bob Ross, right? Like over the weekend when I was visiting, and she was like, "Why is he painting these trees?" I was like, "That's the goat."
Yeah. Yeah, I started like watching some of his stuff again on YouTube, and that dude is fast.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. She at the end, she was like, "I should start painting or something."
he makes that look.
Yeah,
really
I
easy.
was like, "You're not gonna."
Yeah, everybody's like, I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
he makes it look like anybody can do it. It's hard.
Naked and Broke. Welcome back. What was the worst job you ever had, Jason?
There's a few.
A few.
Probably the worst one though is my father used to work for the city of Roselle in New Jersey, and he would go in and clean up foreclosed properties, and people would just wreck those places. Like, and I don't blame them, because the bank's taking their house and everything and all that.
Oh, they would destroy it on purpose.
Yeah,
Got
they would like fill like cement in the toilets and everything to like bust all the plumbing up, or they would just like leave nasty shit everywhere.
Damn.
We found some crazy shit in there. We found like this big bloody shower curtain that was in the backyard. We found human finger bones. We found bullet casings all over, like needles all over the properties, and like it was like nasty stuff. So when I sit behind a computer now and I'm designing this stuff, I think it could always be way worse than whatever the worst client I ever had was. Like I could be going back to that. Like Yeah, that was way up there.
Oh, man.
Telemarketing sucked real bad. You got told to like just go kill yourself or die every day, like 200 times a day.
You're calling people out of nowhere.
I know.
They have the same reaction you
I know,
have.
I know. I was like, I get it. I was like, I hate being here too. I don't want to be here. But at the time, I was working
man.
at Circuit City selling computers, making like $180 a week. And when I went to work telemarketing, I was making like $500 a week.
Ooh.
So it paid way better, but crippling,
Yeah.
like mentally.
Do you speak more than one language?
No. I took a couple years of Spanish. I barely remember it though, to be honest.
I think that's how a lot of foreign languages go. With
I tried that Duolingo app like
Yeah.
around Christmas, and I stuck with it for like 3 months. I got like most of it back, and then I just kind of like fell off again when I got real busy.
But
That's really it.
we were talking earlier NFTs. I feel like a lot of listeners, and myself included, aren't really informed. But do you even know what those letters stand for?
Non-fungible token, but that makes no sense to me. I have no idea what that.
Fungible? What is fungible?
I have no idea. That was the first time I ever heard the word, to be honest. When
That's just perfect. That's just perfect.
Yeah. But it's.
But I guess if you're gonna invent something new, invent a new word with it, right? Why not?
Yeah, I don't know if it is. But that's the first time I ever heard it. Yeah.
But so what is NFTs, and
Basically,
why is it so important to the art word or design?
Well, NFTs
world?
are basically like a digital piece of art that you can mint, which means like you can make like a certain quantity of them, like whether you want it to be 1 or 1,000. Like you can sell these items as like digital pieces of artwork to people the same way you'd sell like a poster, but it's not a physical object.
Wow.
So people are basically buying the data behind it. I don't personally see like what you get out of owning like a digital image, but I guess it's something to where like people think it's an investment and they could resell it down the road, or maybe they can convert it into a product they can make physical pieces from. Like maybe somebody can buy the ownership of that NFT and then make t-shirts or posters or something out of it.
Yeah. Have you worked on any?
I'm working on a project right now for them. They have me creating 120 different assets that will then be randomized into 9,000 different NFTs. So like they'll change out like the border or the type or the background for all these things through a computer algorithm, and it'll make each one look unique. So it's something that's like still kind of tough for me to even wrap my head around, but at least there's somebody on the developer side who knows what they're doing on that. Like I at least just have to handle the design.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. It's like a whole new market, and it seems like a lot of people are making some pretty good money off of it. Like, I don't know if you followed that guy Beeple on Instagram.
Beeple?
It's Beeple. And he's been doing these things called everydays for like 10 years straight. He hasn't missed a day of artwork.
Wow.
And
Yo, share his IG with me, bro.
Yeah, and he sold all 10 years worth as an NFT, and he made something like millions of dollars off of this one digital image.
Wow.
Like enough to retire
collection.
off of. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, you gotta think about it. That's something he started without the knowledge
Oh yeah.
of NFTs. No one even know it's gonna come around. So, I feel like in terms of planting seeds and having them developed, and even with me now, like work I've done 3-4 years ago, clients hit me up about it. It's like, oh, I like this style, or I like how this, you work with this project. And for me internally, I already have that locked down, so I'm just dusting that off the shelf, and like that mural we're talking about, stuff like that. Though it's like I think of it as he already did the work for whatever
years
ended up coming to him in the end. But so going back to like the process of what you're doing now, so you're just doing what you would normally do as a creative, creating an image, sending it out to, is it like a third party or the second half of the team?
Yeah, I think the client has somebody like internally that they have
Gotcha.
on their team that is going to run this algorithm that combines all these pieces I
Got it.
make.
Got it. Oh, so
So
the separate pieces are going to be the one image.
yeah, exactly.
Can't wait to see it. But speaking about clients, what are some of like your clients you work with? Like some heavy hitters.
A
Yes.
few of the bigger ones I've done stuff for, like I did like 6 or 7 T-shirt designs for Harley Davidson.
Mm,
Um, I did a big festival logo design for Disney. They had something called the Season of Light out in Disneyland in California. It's this big light show, and I got to do all the branding and
that's
logo
fun.
type for it. I've done shirts for Wu Tang. I've done shirts for Def Leppard. Um, Lady Gaga had me do some stuff one time. I've done stuff for American Eagle, Time Magazine. So there's been a lot of
Wow.
like fairly big names have come through the studio.
That's just some names, for sure. So in terms of like these projects, like were they were you going after them or were they coming to you?
Actually, I do like little to no advertising. Like most of the
Mm,
stuff is like word of mouth or just coming to me through finding my site or social. Um, and some of them have actually just been like connections I've made at like design conferences.
right,
I
right.
went to a conference a few years in a row called Creative South that's down in Georgia.
I know about Creative South.
Yeah.
I was eyeing it up at the time, but I was in college, and I remember seeing all like the big names there, and I was like, I'm trying to, yeah.
Yeah,
But
they got big names come through. Like
yeah,
you're
how
talking
was your
about
experience?
it's always good. It's a little like heavy on the religious side for me. Like they kind of like on Sunday they do like a mass and everything, like
Uh,
which feels like a little weird for a design conference. Like it should be
yeah, I feel
separate,
like
kind of.
designers are all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like it kind of like splinters off
Yeah.
after the last day, but the actual like content, like the people they have speaking, the vendors, the venue
Mm,
itself, and like the town, it's cool.
yeah.
Like it's definitely a good vibe, and it's not real like stuffy, super professional, like people in suits and stuff. Like it's very like casual. Like you can just hang
Yeah.
out with people and have lunch and talk shop.
Mm.
Um, but like one of the guys I met there ended up being an art director for Harley, and that's how I got the jobs to do those
Oh,
T-shirt
wow.
designs for Harley Davidson.
Awesome. Awesome. Like I feel like two things I want to talk about next is like going out making those early connections, um, like conferences and things, but also in terms of building those relationships, like you were saying, where we live in an age of technology and advertisement, basically, um, where if you don't have those two things, it's hard to quote unquote progress. How are you, you know, gaining traction and slipping between the cracks, so to speak, and still getting work done with some of the best of the best, obviously.
I think a lot of it comes down to like how you manage relationships. If you're
Mm,
good to your clients and you do good work for them, they're gonna tell people about it and they're gonna refer their people to you.
mm,
Like one of the best clients I ended up having was the store in Kentucky when I lived in Lexington for a couple of years and I worked at an ad agency there, and they had a place called House of Bourbon open up, and it was the only place in the country you can resell old vintage liquor, like 100-year-old whiskey bottles, like still full, and they're worth like crazy money. But anyway, they hired me to do the logo, and it was a good experience, I guess, for them, and they were happy with it. And they referred me on to this distillery that was starting out in Wyoming, up in Saratoga, and I got to do their branding, all the
wow.
labels for their bottles, like all the packaging and the ads. And he's given me like 5 or 6 jobs since then, just
Mm,
off the strength of that one job I did for him.
mm.
So that one connection is branched out into
Right.
10 different ones.
Right. It's similar to what I was speaking about with, I forgot the guy name that made the millions of the NFTs. But
People.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
planting that seed
Hmm.
and having it sprout into, whatever amount of branches or whatever ended up
Yeah. You
given to
never
you.
know
Like,
what's going to
yeah,
come of that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're working with say clients and you don't know the end result, whether the big client, small client, don't matter. For me, the approach is always the same.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
so do you, in terms of the work, thinking I could do a really good job for this people, but at the same time I could, like over deliver and get that word of mouth, down the line. Is that how you approach your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's like a $500 project or it's a $10,000 project, I treat it the same way.
Mm.
Like I want to make sure that they're satisfied, that I'm doing the best work I can do. Because if I give them some subpar product that they're not happy with, or they're not going to use, or they're going to,
Right.
talk behind my back and say he didn't do what he was supposed to do, like that doesn't help me at all.
Mm.
So I'd rather spend a little extra time or whatever, even if it's a project that doesn't make me more money. Like if I'm spending that extra effort, it's gonna come back and pay dividends in the future for me,
Right. Right.
or at least it'll reflect better on me than it
Oh
would if
yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
try to like.
Even in the moment, I think it does reflect better because as an artist, you get that satisfaction of I actually went into this project with X, Y, and Z as quote unquote bullet points, and you actually got those things done within that the time frame. Ended up start working towards the last end, but that's whatever design people. But like you have intentions going into a project, and as an artist or designer, you get to solve those problems or those puzzle pieces, however way you look at them. And there's a certain satisfaction that comes with saying, I did the best I could with the timeline, budget, time frame for the client. So, and then you have the other side of the appreciation from the client, and then whoever else that sees the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I want to be proud of whatever I put out. Like I don't want to half-ass something and just have it just not look right or like up to the same standards of my like better work. I don't want people to ever feel like they're gonna come to me and not know what they're gonna get.
Right. So like for like people who are like listening, especially like young creatives, and some like older creatives as well, trying to really get to some of the big names you kind of dropped. Like I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, like looking at that and saying like, let me aim for that, but there's steps to getting there. I remember when I saw your work, I don't remember how long ago, but there was two things that really attracted me to it was the vintage slash I guess Victorian style, whatever that like lettering style. So like cool, and that's something for me. I don't personally have a taste as like sit there and do it. I've messed with it in the past, but like it doesn't come out to reflect me. So like
Yeah,
I've having like explored that a lot. But I've already appreciated it. Just the one thing I appreciate about it is it has like a waviness, regardless of the design. It's like a waviness, a circle. It's like organic type stuff. That's why I appreciate it. But then, um,
yeah. I always want to make sure it has some sort of like flow, feels natural. It doesn't feel
yeah,
like too stiff. Or
yeah.
like,
Also, like I'm attracted to like florals and like
mm,
just how organic they are. So I feel like that and Victorian art kind of go together. But also with you, another thing that really kind of stood out to me was your presentation. It was just clean, cut, and it's like I guess as professional as you could get with it. And you
that's
know,
something that took me a while to figure out too. Because when I was starting out, like the lettering might have been like pretty good or whatever, but it wasn't presented in a way
right.
that was like showing it in the best light. So
Mm.
no matter how good the work is, if your presentation isn't good, like it's gonna really like knock it down a couple
Yeah.
notches.
Yeah, I tell people when we chat that presentation, it's like it's kind of like you work out for a game or whatever, practice for like a whole week, and then the night before, you just like I'm just gonna sleep 3 hours and have this burger. You just setting yourself up for for a bad performance. So I feel like that's like presentation. You do all this work,
Mm-hmm.
put it together, and in the last stage where
Drop the ball at the finish line. Yep.
exactly where you're supposed to probably give 110% or 200%, and to make sure that all of the effort that you put in there when people see it, they're like, oh, I can see the attention to detail. I feel like a lot of people kind of don't really focus so much on the presentation, and it hurts them a lot
It does,
because
yeah. That extra hour or two to like do that mock up or
yeah.
make it look tight and right. It's just you got to spend that little extra time to make it happen.
Yeah, because it's like an extension of the work.
Yeah.
And there's and for me, it took me a while too, and I'm now just getting into it. But documenting the full process of like sketch to taking that scribbles of lines and
People
telling,
love seeing that.
yeah, and
They
showing.
sometimes like even seeing that more than the final product. They like watching how it's made.
Yeah, because that's what I'm getting to. Because most people get caught up, similar to what I was saying with you and the big names, that they're like, oh, how is that attainable? And so most people who are actually trying to put in the work is attracted to the process of how to get there. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback on like seeing how things come together. But I want to talk about like the importance of presentation after the work is complete, because like presentation got me through a lot of doors as far as going from high school to college, from college to couple like design studios and people, just the way the work was put together, that just got me through a lot of doors before like I even knew the people. They were like, we know your work, we know your name.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But that all came
good sign, though.
like presentation wise, because I remember being intentional about even the mock-ups and even the colors, and because for me it was like I could defend this work when I'm here, but as far as me putting it out there, it's not really anything else to say, oh, he did this because of X, Y, and Z. But I figure the way you put the work together and with like up close details and things like that, people get something from it, but also get a insight on who you are as a creative and how much you value the process in totality.
Yeah. And it's tough to like find your personal like niche that you want to fall into, because like I really do enjoy the work that I do, and I love the stuff in it, but at the same time it doesn't feel like it's 100% me all the time, which is like something I'm always sort of struggling with a little bit. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm really drawn to, it's like the really heavy metal stuff, like death metal stuff and like graffiti art and stuff that you wouldn't really see in my work. But what I do is also like what gets me
Exactly
the work as well.
Exactly.
So it's like I can't stray from that too far and like ruin what I got already.
That overlap, you got to find that overlap.
Yeah, you kind of just got to find that sweet spot of like what's going to actually like bring in the money and get the work, and also is something that you still like enjoy doing and you could tell that you have passion for.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I told you about the mural job, but like Rose and I was supposed to connect last week on some work stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm on this paper chase but like this mural, but like we already had a timeline, but like what you were saying, there are certain things you got to do in order to provide either financial stability or just in terms of longevity, to give you the freedom to actually sit down and have the time to do the things that really matters. And because if you're thinking about other stuff, then you might rush that. So like how important is it in terms of like I don't know if you're watching, I'm not, this is not a height thing. It's just, I'm gonna do this. I heard someone say that Black people use a lot of gesture when they're talking because the English language is not ours. And so we're trying to express how we fully feel. So if you're any other race person and you see a Black person or anyone of African descent expressing themselves, there's a reason to that. Now we are better off for it. Dumb, Naked, and Broke, welcome back. Emmanuel Wisdom. I'm here today with Jason Carne, lettering artist, graphic designer from
Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania.
Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. I feel like the only two places that exist in Pennsylvania is Philly and Harrisburg.
Pittsburgh don't count.
we give them that too. Harrisburg only because it's the capital.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I live in Philly. I don't know why. I feel like we got that. Give that to us. This is about time. But we know why. It's historical. You gotta preserve it. That's all. But we only hating. But rightfully so, because Philly, I feel like carries a lot of weight for the entire state of Pennsylvania. So come on.
It does.
But glad you're in Philly. Welcome again. I don't know. Is it like second, third time? How often you come out here?
I'd say like once every other month or so.
So you're kind of familiar with the area.
A bit, yeah. Like I used to come to a lot of like hardcore shows here. Would go to the First Unitarian Church or like the Fillmore, places like that. See some shows.
Do you have any like I don't know, like festivals or something that you normally hit on a yearly in Philly?
No,
Like,
I've never really done like those big multi-day festival kind of things. So
what
there
was
was one that
the
just
American
passed.
one? What was that one? I was
This was at
Made in America or
Made in
whatever.
America.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
I think it was supposed to be the last one that happened or something. I don't remember.
They did have one.
Recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was what I was trying to get to. Um,
Yeah, they just had one that passed like 2 weeks ago. It was like a 2-day thing that Decibel magazine put on. It's called the Metal and Beer Festival,
mm.
and just a lot of like heavy bands like Converge and Napalm Death and stuff like that were playing. But I didn't get to go to that one. It was all sold out. So
Yeah. And so in terms of like younger creatives who are, coming up or, age group, it don't matter. Age range don't matter. But just in terms of, when I say younger, I mean experience. Like what should it be, like 3 or 5 things they should be focusing on? Whether it's, presentation or relationships or networking or like, foundational things
yeah,
that could set them up.
definitely presentation and relationships, like we already touched on. But one of
Yeah.
the biggest things is, I would say, like if you're having a hard time finding clients for this kind of stuff you want to
Mm.
do that work on your own time and show that you can do it, prove that you can do it.
Yep.
Because one of the things I really wanted to do was get into packaging and labeling, because the way they print it is so nice. They do like the embossing and the gold foil and like all the die cutting. Like,
A lot of different treatments.
yeah, it just looks great. But I had never actually done that for a client, so I didn't have any of that in my portfolio, and I couldn't. It's one thing to say you can do it, but it's another thing to prove it. So I went ahead and did my own project, and I paid to get it printed, and I photographed all the bottles and everything. And then once I started doing that, like that's been like, I would say
Wow.
like 2/3 of the work I've gotten ever since.
Yeah, your packaging stuff is always nice.
Thank you.
Is that like a packaging? Not packaging, but like a passion of yours in terms of that particular design, or is that
It's mostly just for like the aesthetic of it, like
yeah.
the look and the printing. Like I'm not a guy who like drinks a lot. Like I don't smoke cigars or anything, but I love the look of all those bottles and those
right?
boxes.
It's more like the aesthetic and the feel,
Yeah,
similar
exactly.
to the vinyl records and things.
Yep.
Yeah, those it's funny because we're talking about this the need for physical touch, but also talking about NFTs and kind of getting away from that. But who knows? All we know is now. Hopefully, they're just buying those to print them out.
Yeah, right.
Such a waste. Oh man, are you more productive at night or in the morning?
It used to be at night, but now I'm gonna say like as I'm getting older, I'm getting up earlier, and I'm feeling a little bit better in the morning. I don't know what it is, but like at night, I just like to kind of like chill out and relax. Like I watch like a movie almost every night with my wife, listen to some records, just like smoke and chill out. But
Yeah, it's kind of like the work day, and then unwind. Because I feel like if you do that, once you have a routine, probably listening to your body and all of that, how you feel. Once you have a routine, it's easier to say this is not for me or this is for me, especially with the productivity as far as when you're supposed to be most productive. Like I try to like stay within the 9 to 5 range because that's majority of society is functional around then.
yep,
But like it doesn't the early mornings. Like I'd rather do like passion projects in the morning or none of the emails. The most I do externally is probably post on Instagram. But like even when I do that, I'm not engaging. Like
Yeah.
it's like probably past noon, and I'll come back and I'll answer your comments and things like that. So like I'm like kind of intentional about the mornings and things. But in terms of like productivity, you just go from like a day to day or like a week to week or
yeah. I mean, it's been a career long thing trying to figure out like work life balance, because like you said, like you used to just go long
Yeah.
hours or something. Like there were days I would work until like midnight, and I just wouldn't do anything else but work,
right.
just to try to get it done or to try to get more money or whatever it had to be. But now, like, I think it's also that I've gotten faster and better at what I do. So something that might have taken me 10 hours a couple of years ago now only takes me 2 or 3 hours,
Yeah.
and it helps me kind of balance that out a little bit better. But But yeah, like most days are pretty similar. Like I try to answer email like first thing in the morning just to stay on top of my conversations, and then the rest of the day I'm trying to focus on work.
Yeah.
Um, One real big thing for me has been getting an artist rep. My best friend Shane Stiles, he lives down in Florida. He's my artist rep, and he does all
Mm,
my project management. So like all the business end of stuff, like
interesting.
the paperwork, the invoicing, the client calls, like
Right.
that's the stuff that like takes me like out of my focus and out of my
Mm,
zone, and like eats up a big chunk of the day.
mm. It's interesting that you brought that up. 'Cause recently I was something I was looking into because I do most of the like work and stuff for everything that I do, and it takes away from the creativity because
Mm-hmm.
whenever I do call it like the business side of it, right? I have to have a couple days where I disconnect and get back to the artist, and then I have like a week or so where I'm doing creative stuff. But in terms of the like not like pros and cons, but like just being solo or getting a rep, an artist rep, like what is like beneficial to that? Because I feel like if that's something you jump into early on, you're gonna miss the process of understanding what you do. But at the same time, it could be beneficial because you could really thrive and hone in on your skill. Um, so what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely good to know the business side of things for sure. Um, like I don't think anybody should kind of like jump over that and skip that part of it, because then you might be getting kind of taken advantage of on the back end if you don't understand the business ends of what happened. But on the pro side of it, I think that like it freeing up all the time in your day to just focus on the creative, and the fact that it sort of like legitimizes you more to the
Right.
clients helps a lot. Because if
Mm,
they kind of have to go through somebody to get to you, that they know that you're like the real deal, kind of.
mm, that's interesting. I've heard somewhere that that we'll be right back. I'm Naked and Broke. Welcome back. Like I was saying, I remembered I had heard someone you was talking about the legitimizing the image of an artist. I heard that Jay Z has about like 18 people that you got to go through before you talk to him.
That's layers.
Like,
That's serious.
like that's like intense.
Yeah.
I was like, I need that right now,
Yeah.
only because I don't want to talk to nobody. But like I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's so legit because by the time whatever information, like I don't need 18 people. I don't. But whatever information needs to get to you is going to be the meat of what needs to get to you because at the end of the day, everything comes down to time. It's either you're using your time wisely or not wisely, and it doesn't matter the activity or what you're doing. Is there someone else that could do the job a, a lot better and a lot more efficient than you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Because
then if that's the case, then
yeah.
you
Because like
should hand that over.
the art and the lettering is what I'm good at. The
Yep.
business is what my partner's good at.
Yep.
So let him take over and negotiate better prices, better timelines, things like that that I wouldn't even really have the capacity to do on my own.
Mm.
Like I could ask for more money, but just being one person, like it's kind of tough to have that conversation. But when you have somebody else that's like negotiating on your behalf,
Right.
like it makes it seem a little
Must
bit
be
more
nice.
serious. Yep.
Yeah. Um, but in terms of like the artist and artist rep, we talked about that. How say an artist who isn't looking to go the route of an artist rep, like what are some of the things they should like be cautious of or keep in mind or keep at the forefront of that unknown industry they're jumping into.
I think it's good to just kind of like be conscious of what other people in your industry are like pricing and what they're doing too. You can just straight up ask people, like, build relationships and talk to people. And a lot of the times they'll tell you, like, this is how I do my invoicing, or this is how I structure like the payments that I'm getting and things like that. So if you're just like going into it totally blind, you could have some people try to like guide you, like look for somebody who's like a mentor maybe.
Mm.
Um, I've had people that I've gone to with that stuff early on, and they kind of helped guide me through it. Like I was telling them when I was first starting out, I was like, "Oh, I'm charging like $50 for a logo," and they're like, you need
Smack.
you need to like
What's wrong with you?
yeah.
Of
For like
that.
$50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, people were like, yeah, we charge like $100 an hour. And then some people
Yeah,
charge
a
like more than
thousand
that.
an hour.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I be telling people, I'm like, once you understand like money, like it's vast. Like it's
Yeah.
not just, $9, $10 an hour.
Mhm.
That's not how people are living out here.
No.
But
And if you could make your clients money, they'll pay too.
exactly. But at the same time, like you were saying, be conscious of what's happening and price levels in the industry. Cause it's not like a grocery store, like, all the oranges are
Yeah.
not $9. Um that wasn't a punt at your, your but just like in design though, you're providing not only the solution for that problem, but you're also giving your time and value to that client. So you got to think of all of that when you price.
Yeah, you got to
And
know your worth. For
yeah,
Sure.
and that's some of the things that artists, even young, old, it don't matter, don't really kind of pay attention to, unless you kind of tapped into the business side of things. But in terms of as an artist designer, when did you get that click to say I got to start paying more attention to like my worth and everything else?
I think it's like once bigger projects started rolling in, like I knew that I should be charging more than I was, but
Mm.
like I didn't know quite how much, or like it was tougher negotiating with people who had like five people on the other side of the screen as opposed to just like one person running a small business that you
Yeah.
have a one-on-one with.
Yeah.
But when they have bosses and their bosses have
Yep.
bosses, it's like, you have to get layers of approval before you
Yeah.
even get to stuff. It's like you
Yeah.
want somebody else on your team too, or at least, talk to a couple other people that have been in that position before you, so you're not being taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of those like layers, people I recently was working on this project, and like I had to submit proposals for the project, and like the proposal got accepted and whatnot, but like it was time consuming as every proposal. And we did the first one, and then the second one, same thing. It was like, oh yeah, the project's much bigger, but you have to submit a proposal to get it to the team for review, and then we get you on the project. Did the same thing. Proposal got approved, and started working on the project. While I was working on the project, like the manager, like building manager, came in. It was like, oh, the owner's actually here. The actual people who reviewed the stuff you've been sending them to, and it was like, yeah, they're gonna be throughout the building. You want to meet them? I'm like, sure. So like it's like a group of maybe five or so people came over, and turns out one of them I actually know, and he was like, yo, Manny. I was like, oh, hi. I guess I've been working for you guys this whole time. But just to say, going back to like that building our relationships and everything else that people don't necessarily pay attention to, that kind of helps put it together. But to the point of I was trying to make of like knowing yourself, knowing your value, and things like that, I immediately was like, if I had known these were the people I was working with, because I had worked with them before. It's just in terms of ownership and how things are structured, there are different names and things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if these were the people, I would have been making probably triple what this proposal is worth, because these people know my value, and I'm saying, they actually know my value of what I'm doing. But because it was a new, like a newer client and all of that, you gotta make sure the first foot in the get is suitable for all parties, and then you start to build upon that. But when I had the moment, I was like, yeah, I actually know the actual owners, and but like just like that knowledge alone was like getting my brain racing. So in terms of like value and knowing who you are and just what you have to offer to the world. Even if you're creative, I think like creative people look at art as good or bad, because that's how we were programmed in school. If you're not doing the Michelangelo on the ceiling, then you're worthless. But part of that, I feel like is the washing of what is art. You can't really say what is art. But so like if you go to art school, you grow up saying my art gotta be this, it gotta hit this, and you kind of slowly peel away from who you are. Like we was talking about your interests and how that kind of influence how you even like projects necessarily you wouldn't do, but like because you do other stuff, it helps you get over that and get you to what you want to do. But I feel like with art school, it kind of, in terms of helping a lot of people, it kind of actually push a lot of people away from the uniqueness about them as a creative. And years later, they try to unlearn the, not like they unlearn, but saying, oh, I this those brush strokes, or maybe the Van Gogh swirls that everyone does. Hey, come on, everyone knows who that is. But not like people who redo it, but just like people who are trying to practice it. And it's just like,
Yeah, you do have to like reset and
yeah,
find yourself sometimes.
yeah,
like, a little
exactly.
bit.
And it's
Like you can almost know too much.
Yeah.
You can go too far. Like I used to be roommates with this guy who was a guitarist, and he was really good. He knew everything about guitar, but he knew so much that like he couldn't play outside the lines, basically. You know?
right.
Like he would just kind of
Yeah,
everything was like kind of like stiff, and like it didn't feel like it had
too
like, emotion
analytical.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like he was doing it from like this real like
Mm.
I don't know like educational side of music. It wasn't like he was feeling it. And
Yeah,
you
I
can
feel
get
like,
that way with art too. To where
yeah,
it's,
people
like
like
real
that make
sterile.
good instructors.
Yeah,
But yeah, I feel like with art, that's where art is going. But like art is not that.
yeah,
And so like a lot of people, not like they're like resentful, but like a couple years later, like, oh, this is not what I really want to do, and try to make that turn away from that. But for me, that was something where art school, I was like I had like a lot of history classes, a lot of art history classes, and even with those, it's like not agreeing with what the teacher's saying, but just memorizing. So I spit it out on the final, and
Yep.
and that's that. But I just kind of knew, like it was always different, even with lettering. Like we was chatting earlier, like no one was teaching me about lettering when I was in school, and I'm sitting there like, this is
Yeah,
what
there's
I'm
no
trying to do.
classes for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is what I'm trying to do, and everything is based on everything else. So I'm saying, okay, how can I exploit this one thing? And
Yep.
and there's a whole design curriculum and program that's put together that's not helping me do that. And so there was a moment where I was, kind of iffy about the whole college thing, but we stuck it out, and got the piece of paper that no one asked me about after I graduated. It's kind of like when
Yeah.
you turn 21 and they don't card you,
Yep.
and you're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd go to school, but I've never been asked about a degree.
Yeah, it was like,
It's in our industry, like the work speaks for itself. Whether or
yeah,
not you have that piece
of
of paper,
course
it
you don't.
doesn't
It's
matter.
not needed. It's not
Yeah.
needed. In terms of maybe if you're trying to go to like, I feel like even if you're trying to work at like Pentagram or them big, heads, like you,
Yeah.
in turn, because with them they might, because they're more like suit and tie kind of people. So they like on paper, yeah, but like they don't really care about it if you're like a dope
Yeah, for
artist.
sure.
And like I get like requests. It's not a lot, but like I get requests to like speak to like schools, and I'm like, y'all don't really want me to talk to y'all.
I'll tell you to drop out and do your own
The
thing.
first
yeah.
word out my mouth.
Yeah.
That's why we in this class.
I
But-
feel like it's hard to. You can't like teach raw talent. Like
Nah.
it's something you either have or you don't. I think like you can teach people software. You can teach people like the business end of things. You could teach them. There is certain like value to it for sure, but like if you don't have it, like it's kind of not going to be drawn out of you in school. I don't think.
No, I feel like even as artists, like if I'm chatting with another artist, I'm always asking them about like the formula, or like in terms of how they got from A to B, not necessarily how did you figure out your style or how did you do what you
Yeah.
did. It's like, how were you able to, have an idea and, manifest or project or however, and then get to where you going with it, and, upscale it in a much bigger sense.
Mhm.
So like, I feel like that's what artists should be focused on. Cause if you understand that, you could take it and apply it to what you're doing. Because a lot of what I'm doing now is the foundational things from design that I'm like, okay, since I'm not getting the answers, I could repurpose these, because, art, design, lettering, they're all one and the same. And for me, with lettering, I had to look at it as art, because it was like no other way. Because again, it wasn't like an art class. I had a typography class that was, for me, it was a joke, because I
I didn't even know they still taught it.
Yeah, they have a intro to topography, advanced topography class. For me, there are formality because those are one and the same. Um, but trying to stretch that art budget and have these students,
Yep.
you
And
know,
seeing it as an art's
yeah,
kind of like a new thing too,
yeah,
because like
it's very new, but at the same time, type not lettering has been around.
Mhm.
So like
yeah, that's hundreds of years old.
yeah, so like that has always been there, and like this, real documentation and research of topography, and
Yeah,
it's even like its own like art genre, so to speak. But then you got lettering that is kind of like a baby in terms of everything else. That really, in terms of, I mean, now you have like courses and foundational stuff that breaks down the type and how to go about that. But before then, it wasn't none. I remember how I got into it and understood lettering was like dissecting illuminated manuscripts because
yeah,
those are so dope.
yeah,
Just because it's not like you're thinking about it now. You got to think about it when it was created, in the time and
yeah.
the conditions,
Hmm.
the people who were doing it. You got to think about all of that, and you're like, wow, this is dope. This is really dope work
Yeah,
that came out of a comfortable situation for sure. But some people were actually sitting there to actually do it because it was a practice and an art form, and a very respectable one at well. So, but if you think about it, you're like, wow, this is dope. And when I look at it, I'm like, after all these years, that stood the test of time. So
yeah.
that's what I always try and like pay attention to. It's like how were you able to create something that throughout these thousands of years, and crazy people, a lot of people either copying or creating better version of it, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So that's why I try to focus on, and that meat of the how to. um I feel like a lot of artists could kind of learn a lot from that. But would you rather speak all languages or be able to speak to animals?
I'm gonna go with animals. I'd rather speak to animals. Yeah.
Give up on humans.
We got translator apps on our phones. We could still talk to all people.
That is true. Even
I'll
though
go-
we're not going to use those translator apps.
Yeah, I
But
want to
yeah,
know
that
what my
makes
dog
sense.
says to me.
But why though? Why all animals? Is there any particular thing you were like, I want to ask?
No, it's not that. I just feel like animals have like no like bad intentions or motives that like most people do. You know, like they.
You have a cat?
Yeah. Cats excluded. Let's cut cats out of the yeah. But like
Yeah.
my dog loves me no matter what. You know, like
Yeah.
I feel like most animals do, and like they have just like a better nature to them than most people do. Like there's lots of good people, but
Yeah.
you know,
There's a lot of work to get to those good people.
yeah,
But I feel like with cats, it's just salty because they're around for so long and they're so close, yet they haven't gotten
they just figure out
they
how to
haven't gotten the
manipulate you.
BFF title yet.
No, no,
So that's why they're like, damn, these dogs.
no, they're manipulators. They act like they like you, and then
Let's play
they're just
second.
trying to get something.
You
out
get
of
a paw to the face.
Yep.
Oh man. Shout out to all the cats out there. Oh man. But never hear music again or lose the ability to read.
That's hard.
Mm.
I'm gonna go with lose my ability to read.
Yeah, I knew you wasn't touching the music
Yeah.
with those 3,000 plus vinyls.
Nope.
Wow, that's a
Nope.
tough one.
That is hard.
Woof.
That's a brutal one.
Music all day then.
Yeah.
Well, you got an artist rap, so
yeah.
you're fine.
I need him to just like bring me picture menus from now on.
I'll have picture 13
Yep.
with that drink in.
Time to learn some braille, I guess.
Oh man, but that's a pretty tough one. Even I ask people that, and I don't have an answer for that. So don't. Last time someone reversed and switched it up, and I was like, cut. Oh man, but any countries on your bucket list that you haven't visited yet?
Yeah, I haven't traveled outside of the U.S. like
Mm.
much, but I'd really like to go see Japan.
That's
Always thought
on
that
my
was really
list.
cool.
I design and all of that in there is just amazing.
Yep. I thought Australia would be pretty cool to see. That just seems like a whole different planet down there.
Because if you know the history of how they got there, you know how people got to Australia.
Yeah. It was first like a prison colony, right? That
Yeah,
they
it was
brought
like
over, and then they
like
had,
an Antarctica type setup where they just ship them and left them there.
yeah. Yeah, my wife is huge into animals.
Bro, that concept is so wild now that years later.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
we're just gonna just leave them. They'll be fine.
Like, you imagine just, like,
they'll be fine
yeah.
or they'll die or whatever. That's just like weird.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, and then on like the architecture subject, like India, I'd love to go see too. Like their architecture out there is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And like Morocco too, like crazy stuff over there.
Yeah.
I follow some people who still do like those plaster castings for like all the ornamental walls and stuff,
Right.
and they just like straight up like will make these things like huge panels like out of plaster that they're like just pouring out of molds and stuff, and I don't know. It looks like ancient techniques, but they're still doing them today, like just the same way.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
But yeah, with stuff like that, it's so like mesmerizing, but at the same time, you can see like the human connection,
Yeah.
firsthand, seeing, and then you see it on a building or.
And they do like every part of it.
Yeah.
Like they mix their own pigments for colors and everything too. It's not like they just run to
Yeah.
Home Depot and get
it's
like, I want green tile in this, and it's like
yeah, it's kind of like when I listen to people, I don't really engage, but I listen to people talk about like how the pyramids were built, and I'm like, if you look at the culture, it's easy to kind of figure out how it's built. I don't know how it's built, but like if you look at it, you'll see that they actually had sense and they actually used their brains, and it's not no alien type stuff, but like it's more the sensitive.
no,
Like,
they were really
like
intelligent.
art historians talk about like the pyramid, how did it get from Egypt to like I think like Mexico, the Aztec.
Yeah, like all those
like
Mayan and Incan ruins
Mayan,
and stuff.
like how'd that get there? I'm like people were traveling back then. It's not like the
They were, like,
world didn't
amazing
exist.
engineers,
Yeah, people were actually balling, and
Yeah.
they didn't need watches, and I'm gonna look at the moon and look at the stars real quick. All right, we got some rain coming next week. Let's try and hit up Mexico. Just being funny, but like that was really how things operated, and people didn't understand that like the brain is really a crazy mechanism. Like
Yeah.
like
We like to think that people
like-
like thousands of years ago were
Yeah.
like super primitive, but they were brilliant too. Like really great engineers, like the Babylonian stuff, the
Yeah.
stuff in Mexico, like the Chichen Itza, I think, is like the huge temple that they have down there.
I don't know the name, but
It's like the architecture of it's just insane.
yeah, there's like architecture again, something that I feel like architecture, some people are gonna live or occupy it, is very attention to detail, but it's something again that always stands the test of time, and just years later, people always is in awe, not just of how it is, but how it was created, and similar to what we were saying about like the process, sharing the process of what we do, and people being in awe of how you got from A to B. But yeah, for me with architecture, I was telling you via email a little bit that I actually went to architecture and design high school with Rose over there, and I mean I knew right away architecture wasn't for me. It was too much work with the whole like 8 years.
It's a long program.
Yeah, I was like, I'm trying to get to this paper, and
It wasn't what I thought either. Like I thought I could be a draftsman, like just draw the building and stuff
yeah.
like that. But that's like not a job that exists anymore. You need to be like an architectural engineer. Like and the whole like math end of it, it's just it kind of I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like I got to like pre-calculus and I hit like a wall with math. I
wow.
was like,
So you did actually.
I did one semester up in Boston. I did.
So what
did
happened? How'd you?
Failed math.
That'll do it.
Didn't do so good in English. I did good in my drawing class and my art history class and all that. But that was really it.
The building is beautiful, but it's not stable.
Yep. Nobody go in it.
Oh man, that's what's up. But like with architecture, it was like in terms of time, it was just too long. By like as far as, because that's how I was breaking it down as a kid. It's like you get the numbers. This profession make 40, 50 a year. What, 2, 3 years or 4 years of college.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, post college. That's how I was breaking it down. Grad school if it's needed and all of that craziness. So I was like, yeah. By the time I get up there, then I don't know. Then you gotta put yourself out there after all these years. If basically what you was talking about, proving that you could do the work if you don't have that portfolio and getting certifications to actually do the work and all of that. So I was like, that's a process. But the main thing was I didn't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
Beyond all the other excuses, the patience wasn't there. So that was when I knew. But going back to your story though, when was the architecture and graphic design flip? Was that like something that you were conscious of, or was it just like architecture is not it, and I'm gonna
No,
see
I
what's
just
out
kind
there?
of like fell into it. Like in high school, I took those CAD classes. That was like the one elective we had that was on a computer in our school, and you could draw buildings and objects and things like that. It was more like a mechanical engineer kind of program. But um, after I did the semester of it, my mother had passed away that winter in between semesters. That's 15 years ago. And during that time, my brother was only 8 years old, and I was like, kind of want to hang around for my brother because my mother's gone.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I was just taking like all random jobs. Like I worked at like a grocery store. I was working like for my friend's father doing construction work, and then I met with some dudes that I went to high school with, and they all had bands, and they all needed like album art and flyers and stuff. And they're like, "Yo, we remember you're real artistic in high school. You want to do this? You want to do that?" So I just started doing that work, and then I moved my way into like merch design, doing like their T-shirts and posters for them. And actually, like a lot of my first work was doing MySpace layouts for people back in the day. It was
Wow.
money to be made in it, though.
Wow. MySpace layout. I didn't
Yeah.
think that was a thing. So like the IG layout, whatever. That's not new.
No, you could like totally customize your page. Like I figured out all sorts of like hacks and codes to like get rid of the ads on the pages
Oh wow.
and make it look like it's like their own website, like
Mm.
animated stuff. And so that was like an early part of what I was doing. But after a while, I figured out like the lettering's what I like more than any other part of it, and it just kind of gravitated towards that. And maybe it had something to do with like the architecture too, like looking at the old buildings with like the stone lettering and plus, like I said, like I really like graffiti and stuff when I was growing up. So I think that was just like a seed that was kind of like planted in my
Yeah.
head early on.
Yeah. And so with the type, going from architecture, graphic design, and then into lettering, somewhere along the lines, you was telling me about caramel. Is it caramel?
Carmel, yeah,
Carmel.
yeah.
All right, I messed
It
that
was
up totally.
it's all good. Most
Carmel
people do.
type
We even
co.
have like a thing on our FAQ because most people think it's caramel, but it's because my last name is Carne and the other guy's last name was Melton at the time, so it's Carmel. Kind of like
Got
just
you.
put it together. But yeah, it was a font design site where we were selling our own stuff, and then we started pulling in some other designers. Like Gary Godby was selling stuff with us. He's one of the Disney Imagineers. Like he did a bunch of the windows down in Magic Kingdom and like rides and stuff like that. And then there was
Pretty awesome.
this guy Noel Weber. He's up in Idaho. He was selling some fonts with us. He's one of the best sign painters in the world, probably. And another one was Jerry Berg. He was a guy who did like all like hot rods and pinstriping and stuff. So we had like this nice, like
Right.
diverse kind of set of fonts that we were selling.
It's awesome.
And now I'm starting to like branch out and partner up with other sites. Like I got stuff on Retro Supply, Heritage Type, Ephemera fonts. Like diversifying your stream of incomes has been like a big thing for me. Like all this passive income.
Yeah.
Like it might only be like $50 a month here, $100 a month here, but when you have like 10 of those like piling up, like it starts to add up and make some real money every month.
With Retro Supply Co., I was thinking about them. Like, was that experience like for you?
That was good. I've known that guy, Dustin Lee, who runs Retro Supply now for like 7-8 years. He's another guy I met at Creative South. And we started out partnering with that lettering library business I was telling you about, where I sold those PDFs of those books. I sold a big bundle of them. It's 125 books altogether. And so he put it up on his site as like a Black Friday deal for like $50 for all those 125 books. And that made like a lot of money over a week. We did that Christmas through New Year's, and in 1 week that made $30,000
Wow.
from selling PDFs, which
Wow.
is it's no overhead, no product.
What
no nothing.
what would the price per I guess not unit, like just cost?
It was like $50 for the pack. So
Gotcha.
I forget how many it sold exactly. Like we did an even split. So
This is like retro.
yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, they have a pretty good like base.
Yeah,
as well,
that's the
so.
thing is like that was what he was bringing to the table was his
Yeah.
customers. Like he has a mailing list of like 80,000 people or something
Wow.
like that.
That's amazing.
And unlike social media where you get that 2% of
Yeah.
your followers, something, when you send an email out, it actually goes to everybody.
Yeah.
So if you get 1% of 80,000 people, that's what, like 800 people buying your product.
Right.
That's like some real money in one day.
Yeah. But that's impressive. That's impressive. But like I feel like if the work intention is right, if the work is right, people always pick it up, regardless. I have one last question, but any current project or things you're working on, or what's next for Carmel Type Co. And anything else you have upcoming?
Yeah, biggest thing right now is the artist representation agency that I work with called Atom Smasher. It was just my best friend and I starting out a couple of years ago, and we've recently expanded to have 10 artists on the roster. So we're starting to do like bigger, more collaborative projects that'll be coming out in the future. A lot of NDAs and things like that are signed that kind of restricts me from telling about it. But it'll be like collaborations with other artists that I've admired for a long time, like
Awesome.
Justin Kamerer, Angry Blue. I don't know if you follow
Angry
him, but he's
Blue.
really great poster artist out of Louisville.
I gotta check them out. I remember that.
Lisa Quine, she's been a friend of mine for a long time. She's a mural artist up in Cleveland. My friend Jeremy, he's out of Indiana. Like we've been doing some illustration work together. My friend Roberlin down in Brazil, we've been partnering up on some stuff. So we're starting to get like multinational sort of things coming together, where people from different countries, different backgrounds and everything all collaborating.
Wow.
Which I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's cool to like do your own work, but when you get to actually have some other people coming in with you, it's really exciting. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's where the next wave of society is going. It's just like mixing everything up because like everything is all mixed up now, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of what comes to the mixture of collaboration. But most importantly, looking forward to see how that collaboration come out. Do you have a date in mind? I know everything is not solid as of yet, but
there's a few things that are going to be coming around like November, December. So towards the end of the year, it'll be a nice way to kind of wrap up 2021, move into the next year. And I got like 2 more fonts planned before the end of the year too. So I'm going to try to drop those. But,
awesome.
Yeah.
You have a name for those fonts?
No working titles. That's like the last thing I do actually is getting the name. One
Font.
time I actually named one Roundhouse once, and it was already taken by House Industries. They had like an old font from like 25 years ago, and they emailed me about it. They're like, "Yeah, you need to change that name." After I already made all like the promo images, and I had to go fix it back up. So.
Townhouse.
Yeah. Research what you're going to call it before you put it out.
Yeah.
Don't get sued.
But I want to thank you, Jason, for coming in today and dropping some knowledge and chopping it up and sharing a little bit about you and the work you do. It's good to meet you for the first time in person. I feel like
here.
I feel like it's weird. I'd be like meeting people and I'm like, I kind of already know you. But but yeah, also like we was chatting in email. You was like, yeah, it would be nice to have the in-person conversation rather
it's good
than
to get off Zoom and Skype for once. Nice.
Yeah, it always is. But again, appreciate you for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, one last question though, before we wrap things up. 3 lessons that you've learned that you feel like younger artists or creatives coming up could learn from.
Don't talk behind other people's backs in the industry. It'll definitely get back to them, and it'll definitely make you look worse than them, for sure. I would say always do what you're passionate about. It'll show in your work. If you're not, stick to what you really love to do. And let's see, number 3. Watch Bob Ross. It'll make you feel better.
You heard it. Don't talk ugly to people in the industry. Do what you love, stay with your passion, and kick it on the weekends with Bobby.
That's right.
That's Bobby Rouse. Dumb Naked and Broke. We out of here. Hi there, I'm Emmanuel Wisdom, host of the Dumb Naked and Broke podcast. I want to thank you for spending time with us today and listening and watching wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and whatever you're listening right now. Thank you.